fun because things are actually happening. Very different than most of the time when people get elected.
And I will shut down the Federal Department of Education, and we will move everything back to the state.
Most of the time when people get elected, they claim all these things when they're running for president. Then they get into office and not much changes.
Individualize education and do it with the love for their children.
And in fact, a lot of what they campaigned on, they don't practice at all. Great example is the Obama administration. The Hope and Change website had to be changed because there was a bunch of stuff in there about whistleblowers.
I don't think Mr. Snowden was a patriot. I called for a thorough review of our surveillance operations before Mr. Snowden made these leaks. My preference would have been for a lawful, orderly examination of these laws.
Protecting whistleblowers, which they didn't do at all. There was one of the worst administrations for whistleblowers.
Picture a guy who was like a political superstar, promising everyone awesome things like hope and change. But now, Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson are saying he's sneaking around with big shot secrets and powerful friends. They're not being shit there, throwing out facts and jokes, saying his shiny image is getting messy, like a broken robot voice at a speech. This drama is like dropping the mic at a school talent show. Welcome to a big surprise nobody expected.
Now that he's a Netflix producer, along with his hate-addled wife, Michelle, he's using more racial division. The latest is called Leave the World Behind. Fictional thriller about the collapse of technology and what humans would do with no phones or computers. The movie follows a family on vacation at a rental house, and one night they're visited by a father and a daughter who show up seeking shelter. They say their phones no longer work and they need a place to stay. So immediately the white family, because they're evil, that's included in their DNA of course, is suspicious of the visitors because they're black. And it goes on and on and on like this. Here's a clip.
I'm asking for you to remember, if the world falls apart, trust should not be doled out easily to anyone, especially white people.
You can't trust white people. They're evil. This is the guy, remember, who became famous at the Democratic Convention in 2004 by telling us there's no white America, there's no black America. Just one America. Of course, that's not really a profit model in politics, is it? So he's been stoking race hatred ever since, and the disarray around us is the result.
This guy was supposed to stay cool and classy after being president. But Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson crashed the party like two buddies with big secrets. They say he and his team made up a wild story about Russia messing with an election, turning serious stuff into a big show. Suddenly, his hopeful, fancy-talking vibe started to crack. Like a superhero losing their cool costume, setting up a huge showdown.
Use the volume and go full screen.
What you know now, do you wish you had a third term? You know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats, looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony, I'd be fine with that.
We know he wasn't really running the country.
Yeah.
We used to think he was actually running the country, and now they're like, no, he didn't even see those executive orders. That was all auto pen.
The psychodrama between him and Obama is real. I don't think it is between him and Kamala Harris. Between him and Obama, it's real.
Remember Hunter Biden, who was my neighbor for many years, telling me more than once, when Biden was vice president, how much they despised Barack. He despised Barack Obama.
Well, what he did to Joe Biden in 2016 to say, we're going with Hillary Clinton, that and the Biden family, that's as bad as it gets. That's as treacherous as it gets. And then in 2020, he didn't really support him until he had to, when it was just him.
Joe Rogan jumps right in, pointing out something weird. This guy was all about being honest, but he got caught up in a story based on rumors, like stuff you'd hear at a sleepover. If you're all about truth, you better make sure your info isn't just gossip. Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson says this guy's own team started investigations based on shaky ideas, causing a huge mess in the news and slowing down the government.
Do you remember when they gave that speech, when he gave a speech on television, and everybody was like, this? And then they kind of just went away.
It was one of the most beautiful moments in modern American history. People really actually stood up, stopped a war from happening. Study unauthorized armed forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya in support of an international effort to protect Libyan civilians.
Then came something called Obamagate. Another big name, Trump, said this guy was secretly watching his campaign. Nobody found proof of spying, but the story got everyone super hyped. Joe Rogan laughs, saying the guy who's supposed to be super smart suddenly looks scared of his own fridge. Tucker Carlson grins, saying the guy who talked about hope is now stuck in his own bubble.
You had sex with him twice, you did cocaine with him, watched him smoke crack twice. You had no idea who he was. I had no idea who he was. Just ask the obvious question. What was Obama like on crack? Is it your sense that that's who Obama is? Transactional, or that he's bisexual, or like what is it?
It definitely wasn't Barack's first time, and I would almost be willing to bet you it wasn't his last.
Next, a special team started checking out people from this guy's time in charge, saying they used secret info in a bad way. Joe Rogan's like, you're mad enough to start a big investigation, but nothing big came out of it. Tucker Carlson says it was all a huge show with lots of noise but no real results. Just a bunch of drama.
This is the accusation. They're throwing around the word treason.
I hate to say this, but President Barack Obama, there is now incontrovertible evidence that he was the spearhead of a seditious conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people and overthrow the United States government back in 2016.
They're saying that Obama knew that Russia did not meddle in the election, did not have any impact in the election.
Things got messy with other countries too. This guy was praised for being friendly with Russia and keeping things chill, but it left a big mess. Places like Libya, Syria, and Ukraine got super messy. Joe Rogan says his calm leadership looks more like he wasn't paying attention. Tucker Carlson adds that his fancy speeches didn't fix anything, and nobody took responsibility. Plus, his cool style turned into big money speaking fees, book deals, and movie deals. Joe Rogan jokes that hope and change now come with corporate logos. Tucker Carlson says the guy who used to call out big companies now hangs out with them, while acting super real. Then, when trouble came, he got his fans to treat anyone who disagreed like they were bad guys. Joe Rogan says he acted like everyone should agree with him and not ask questions. Tucker Carlson says he made it seem like agreeing with him was the right thing to do, but it fell apart when people looked closer.
You see the video of Biden at the debate in 2007 announcing that Barack Obama had an AIDS test.
I know Barack got tested for AIDS.
Remind me. Funniest video ever. Biden said, well, I think, AIDS is a real problem in the African American community.
And the community's engaged in denial.
And I think we should all get AIDS tests. Barack Obama had an AIDS test.
I know Barack got tested for AIDS.
There's a cutaway of Obama being like.
As the heat turned up, being an ex-president kept him safe from trouble. No lawsuits, no big problems, just a fancy shield. Joe Rogan shrugs, saying it's like a superpower to avoid trouble. Tucker Carlson nods, saying his protection is stronger than the ideas he used to talk about. In the end, his big, shiny story started to fade. The guy who inspired everyone now just talks at fancy events and book tours. But Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson keep calling him out, like they're breaking open a display case to show what's really inside. Even with all the fancy documentaries and fan posts online, the truth keeps sneaking out like a spooky story that won't go away.
When you look at the policies and the attacks on whistleblowers and drone strikes and all the other that happened during that administration and the coup in Russia, and there's a lot that's, from a foreign policy perspective, that's very similar to what George Bush was doing. But what they were doing was highlighting social justice issues. That came about during his administration, largely obscured the fact that the foreign policies were very similar to what George Bush was doing.
Joe Rogan dives into the weird stuff. How can you act all calm and perfect when your team was running secret drone missions like a video game? The guy who won a Peace Prize was okay with faraway attacks without asking permission. It's like giving a best friend award to someone who's secretly causing trouble. Tucker Carlson jumps in, saying this guy used the government to watch regular people, keeping tabs on them like a nosy neighbor. The news didn't make a big deal about it, acting like it was all fine when it wasn't.
Hold every one of these criminals accountable for the crimes that they committed. They are the most heinous crimes committed in American history.
But yet promoted this idea.
James Comey, John Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Biden was in the meeting. They briefed Barack Obama on Hillary Clinton's plan to, quote, tie Trump to Russia collusion lies. It consumed our national discourse for 5 years.
And then there's been some incredible clips of all these different news reporters, CNN and MSNBC, just saying over and over and over again, clear evidence of Russian.
Then there's the healthcare promise. He said, if you like your plan, you can keep it. But Joe Rogan says that was a big fib. Lots of people lost their plans and got stuck in a confusing mess like a never-ending line at a theme park. Costs went way up, and small businesses got buried in paperwork. Tucker Carlson says the Affordable Care Act wasn't affordable at all, like calling a super expensive house cheap. Oh, and the country's debt. It grew by over $8 trillion while he was in charge. Then there was all the talk about unity and diversity, but it turned into arguments and people getting mad over little things, like calling out bad grammar.
The men and women will they endure the sting of discrimination. The smack of belly clubs weren't time. If the folks who had to fight those early fights
Those were the tough fights for union rights and voting rights and gay rights and women's rights. If you didn't get there, you can't be tired.
Oh, settle down, boomer.
Joe Rogan laughs at how this guy went from quoting famous leaders to having fans who get upset over tiny things. Tucker Carlson says diversity turned into fighting, and now people are scared to say anything without getting in trouble. Race relations were supposed to get better, but they got worse, with more arguments and less trust. Joe Rogan says it's like starting a fire and calling it a good thing. Tucker Carlson says his pretty speeches were just for show, no real fixes. Plus, this guy who said he was for regular people now hangs out with super rich folks. Joe Rogan says he's out of touch, chilling with celebrities while regular people worry about bills. Tucker Carlson says he left kids with big debts and old school books while talking about their future.
Can I get a glass of water? This is not a plan. He gets a glass of Flint tap water, and I swear to God, he drinks it like this, like this.
Can I get some water? I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt.
Usually when something isn't a stunt, you have to say that.
100%.
Then there's the Iran deal, which was supposed to be a big win. But Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson say it was like sending money to a country that doesn't like us. That's not smart. It's like helping someone who's planning to cause trouble. The deal didn't bring peace, just confusion. And then there was Benghazi, where people died, and the response was a big dodge. Joe Rogan says it was all about fancy words to cover up mistakes. Tucker Carlson calls it a mess, dressed up as a plan. Plus, big tech companies grew huge under this guy, and nobody stopped them. Joe Rogan wonders why nobody cared. Tucker Carlson says while he talked about fairness, tech companies controlled what people could say online.
You know, he was roasting Trump in the audience, and you could see Trump in his head going, oh, man, okay, I'm going to run now. Like, that might have been the thing that got him to run.
No one is happier. No one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. We fake the moon landing. It really happened in Roswell. And where are Biggie and Tupac?
That one moment where Obama was talking to him might be the reason why Trump was like, I'll show you.
His fans still say he had no big scandals, but Joe Rogan laughs, saying that's only because the news didn't call them out. Things like Fast and Furious, targeting certain groups, hospital problems for veterans, and secret spying got swept under the rug with smooth talk. Tucker Carlson says, when the news loves you, you never get in trouble. And now, this guy gives speeches about fairness while living in fancy houses. Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson say it's like he's pretending to care while living large. In the end, he's like a superstar who sold a big dream hope and changed but traded it for podcasts, movie deals, and big influence. Joe Rogan calls it the best branding ever, like a famous logo. Tucker Carlson says he was America's first influencer president, all style and no responsibility. His fans can keep sharing old photos, but as long as people like Rogan and Carlson are around, they'll keep telling it like it is, showing the real story behind the fancy image. No music, no lights, just the plain truth.